Well, we have breaking news that the Arizona Diamondbacks have officially acquired third baseman Nolan Arenado, and we have so many questions about the move, including will he play third base or first base, and how did they get the Cardinals to eat $31 million of his contract? All of this in 30 seconds. Don't you go anywhere. And happy Nolan Arenado Day. Welcome into another edition of the PHNX Dbacks podcast, live from Studio K, presented by our friends at Circle K. It is I, your mayor of PHNX, occasionally known as Derek Montia. Thrilled to have you guys here and thrilled to essentially be melding two podcasts together due to this breaking news that the Arizona Diamondbacks have acquired third baseman Nolan Arenado from the St. Louis Cardinals. We usually have our guy Jesse Friedman on, and when we do those shows, they are pre-recorded just due to Jesse's schedule. So we will have Jesse Friedman from Snakes Territory joining us here shortly to discuss more potential moves, including perhaps the Diamondbacks going after Luis Arraez, which now might be irrelevant. And of course, if this is a volatile roster, which we already know it is. But the big news this morning, of course, is that the Arizona Diamondbacks have in fact officially acquired third baseman Nolan Arenado from the St. Louis Cardinals for right-handed pitcher Jack Martinez. And that might be a name that a lot of Diamondbacks fans might not know. Jack Martinez was the 8th round pick of the 2025 draft. Meanwhile, the Diamondbacks receive Nolan Arenado and cash considerations. I have to confess, I woke up this morning to a source texting me, telling me or asking me if I was ready to speak third baseman. That was the text message I got this morning. And shortly after that, we got somewhat of a confirmation here on what the hell my source was talking about when the Athletics' Katie Woo reported that the Diamondbacks and the St. Louis Cardinals were in fact in serious talks about the Diamondbacks acquiring Arenado. This is a weird move because obviously at this point in his career, Arenado has had a few down seasons with the St. Louis Cardinals. He's not ancient in baseball terms, but he is 34 years old, so he's on the older side, and there's a lot of apprehension here about whether the Diamondbacks really want to add a player like this at this point of his career. The move has the move does have some caveats to it, and it does have, of course, the biggest factor, the most defining element of this move, according to Nick Piccoro, was that the Cardinals are going to eat $31 million of this deal, meaning that the Colorado Rockies and the St. Louis Cardinals are both still paying Nolan Arenado's contract while he is a member of the Dbacks. And you can't hate that, right? You can't hate that. But overall, Arenado did have to waive his no trade clause in order to make this deal happen. And again, the Cardinals are covering the majority of the contract. The Diamondbacks are responsible for about $5 million of his contract in 2026 and $6 million in 2027, making the deal incredibly cost effective for the Dbacks. And again, this is the exact type of risk that we have discussed the Diamondbacks needed to take. Okay, we're going to take a look here at Arenado's stats. Here are his numbers from 2025. And again, these are some of the worst of his career. Last season, Arenado hit .237. He had an abysmal OPS of .666, and also terrifying if you are a religious person or believe in such things. He had a 2.8% home run percentage, and on the good side, one of the career best strikeout percentage, a career low at 11.2%. He was worth a Baseball Reference WAR of 1.3. But overall, if you look at his stats for his career, comparing those stats, you can see why Arenado is an attractive addition to any team, even at age 34, even after having a down season with a bad Cardinals team. He hit, in his career, he's hit 282. He has a career 846 OPS, which is just phenomenal overall. And I mean, this is a guy, of course, that has been in the league for 13 years. He has a 4.7% home run percentage, so you can see how that dropped. Overall, his career strikeout percentage is 14.6. So last year, you saw him have some pretty good plate discipline overall. That's probably one of the pluses from 2025 for Arenado and his offensive production. And his average baseball reference WAR per season is 5.2. Back in 2022, he had a National League best 7.9 WAR for the St. Louis Cardinals. That year, he hit 293, 358, 533 for an 891 OPS. He had 30 home runs and 103 RBI. I think the biggest thing about this deal is that most people are going to look at it and maybe compare it to when the Diamondbacks got Evan Longoria, right? And that's probably a good comparison because he is still a stellar defender over at third base, and he is a veteran presence that's being added to a young Diamondbacks team that really doesn't have much of a veteran presence outside of James McCann and Merrill Kelly at this point. And, you know, you could argue that Nolan Arenado has played at an elite level for most of his career. He's a multi-time All-Star. He's finished top 5 MVP voting multiple seasons, 4 times in his career. So, I mean, this is a guy that again, he is at the end of his career, tail end of his career, but still probably has a lot to give a Diamondbacks team that is not paying a ton of money for him. Plus, there was a report not too long ago, in fact, I think it was less than 24 hours ago, that the Diamondbacks were one of the teams, along with the Angels, that were interested in acquiring Arenado via trade. And the report said that Arenado was open to potentially playing first base instead of third base. Now, that is something very interesting in this entire equation. I think the addition of Nolan Arenado over there immediately makes people, especially people who might be a fan of Blaze Alexander, or maybe the other of the 4 of you that might want to see Jordan Lawler over there at third base. But regardless, people that feel like the Diamondbacks have young players that can play third base, there is the potential here that Arenado might solve the Dbacks first base problem. That is a much bigger hole for this team. And again, he is a guy that probably would be pretty good defensively over there, considering he's a multi-time Gold Glove winner at third base. The Diamondbacks missed out on Alex Bregman, but that might be a blessing in disguise. Obviously, Arenado is not Alex Bregman. He is not going to put up Alex Bregman's numbers, and he's probably not going to be as sharp defensively over there. However, when you take a look at a $5 million cap hit in 2026 and a $6 million payroll hit in 2027, not cap, there's no cap in baseball. I don't even know why I said that. Payroll hit. This is a really good deal. I mean, the Diamondbacks give up a kid who is a prospect, but they did just get a pretty good pitching prospect in return from the Rockies. So overall, you could look at this as being a trade where the Diamondbacks, in fact, traded Jake McCarthy on Saturday for Nolan Arenado today. Now, that is probably being far too dismissive to the minor leaguers involved in the deal. But again, the Diamondbacks do get a starting pitcher in the minor league system for Jake, opens up a roster spot and allows them to bring Nolan Arenado in today. And now they have, at least for the time being, you know, they have a proven third baseman and a veteran presence in the infield. Obviously, you know, the move is going to impact a lot of things for the Diamondbacks. It's going to impact where specifically Blaze Alexander plays. And if you have not been paying attention, Lourdes Gurriel Jr. just posted video of himself running bases and sliding into second base. That man had a progress bar at the bottom of the screen that said 95%. That seems to be as close as he is, right? So again, maybe the Diamondbacks don't have as many needs to fill as we once thought. Because now with this Nolan Arenado move, this might impact either first or third base. Might have the versatility to move him around on the infield, depending on, you know, situations, opposing pitching, things like that. You also have the fact that Blaze can play left field. That might be a temporary move until Lourdes Gurriel Jr. comes back. Blaze might factor in to the infield. He might factor into the outfield. I still don't love that for Blaze, considering I think that that man needs consistent playing time and has earned it with the way that he performed for this team in the second half of last year. But I know there's some people that aren't excited about this move. Understandably so, right? I mean, this is not Nolan Arenado from the good old Colorado Rockies days. So, I mean, it's something that is not going to move the needle as much as it once would have. However, there is the change of scenery thing here. There is coming to compete with a Diamondbacks team that is hungry and looking to make themselves relevant in 2026, considering this could potentially be the final season Corbin Burnes is a part of this team, right? There has to be a sense of urgency within this organization, and I think ultimately that's why this move happened. They were in on Alex Bregman. Bregman ends up costing entirely too much, and they pivot on a low risk, potentially high reward deal here with Nolan Arenado coming to this team, and I quite frankly don't hate it. I would have hated it much more if you would have talked about the Diamondbacks taking on that contract, that albatross that would have made no sense to take on. But when we find out how much of this deal the St. Louis Cardinals are actually eating, then it doesn't make this, again, the $42 million contract that he still had left. This definitely makes this more of the exact kind of deal the Diamondbacks needed to find in free agency and most likely weren't going to find. I love the idea of bringing Paul Goldschmidt back. This probably impacts that now, not only monetarily, but it also impacts it because the Diamondbacks may have filled that need at first base in at least in their game plan with Nolan Arenado being acquired. But I also feel like if you looked at it, Goldy was going to cost you potentially double of this amount. And if you look at Goldschmidt's production with the Yankees last year, you can't really feel like that was going to bring you much more than what you're going to get out of Nolan Arenado. And you're definitely getting a better defender, not only at third base, but like I said, the potential for him to play first feels pretty good, and it feels like something that could be a great fit for this Dbacks team. Overall, the infield got better, and if Nolan can find a way to get his bat to come back around to what it was just a few seasons ago, you feel better, right? Like even in 2024, he slashed 272, 325, 394 for a 719 OPS, right? Perhaps, hitting at Chase Field might yield him some extra bases, might help increase that slugging percentage, and might help bring his overall OPS up. He had an OPS plus last year of 102, which again is just slightly above league average. This year, 87, not above league average. But again, you're getting a guy now for $5 million that was once an all-star and still has the ability, I feel like, to get back to that level where he's at least a slightly above league average hitter, and the defense it's much better than that overall. But I love this move. I'm excited about it. And again, this is exactly the kind of budget move the D-backs needed to make. I know that a lot of these budget moves aren't going to be exciting. Even bringing back Merrill Kelly. I've said it though, Merrill, if I blindfolded you about the name and only showed you the stats, you would feel like Merrill Kelly would have been an incredible starting pitching acquisition based on the numbers he put up for the Diamondbacks last season for $20 million a year. So again, with Arenado, if I told you that this guy was coming in with these numbers at $5 million a year, you probably wouldn't hate it. But if I also showed you his Baseball Savant page, maybe I can interest you in his Baseball Savant page. Might be there's some red on there still. Do we have that Baseball Savant page, Noah? There's still some red on there. It's not all blue. It's not all terrible, right? I mean, some of them are pretty bad, but his fielding run value is 69th percentile. Nice. He also has still good whiff percentages and strikeout rates down there, and his range for fielding for outs above average is in the 81st percentile. So again, I think that this is a guy that still has a lot left in the tank and still has that potential rebound, in him, right? I think coming to the Diamondbacks and being on competitive team rather than being on what was somewhat of a listless Cardinals team could help. And I also think that he's going to be looked at to be, again, a bit of a veteran leader and presence in the clubhouse for this team. So overall, I can't hate this move at all. I would have hated the move much more if it would have been, one of these high-priced free agents that the Diamondbacks simply can't afford. This still allows them the financial flexibility to go out and add to this bullpen that they still need to add to, or perhaps find another deal when it comes to starting pitching and bolster their depth there. I don't love the fact that they only have 5 starting pitchers, and despite the fact that they did add plenty of young minor league arms in the system, I still don't love the idea of those guys being called upon should an injury happen early in the season. Thank you guys all, by the way, for being here. If you're here right now in the chat, make sure to leave a like for us. We love it when you do that. We got a super chat here from C. Lucas33. He says, I don't like that Hazen neglects bullpen help. Waiting on Puck and Martinez to come back and hoping Ginkel returns to form feels like punting this year. The last 2 years have been lost by the pen. There is not an ounce of that is not true. That is 100% the truth, and I cannot agree more. I have said it for those of you that might not have stopped by over the last couple of weeks, but it's the reason why rumors about Kyle Tucker and Alex Bregman made me sick. It has nothing to do with acquiring a player of that caliber and adding it to this team. It just has to do with baseball being such a fickle sport where a guy that hits the ball 28% of the time is considered to be a stud that deserves $200 million a year, and a guy that hits it 23% of the time is a wash, and it's a wrap on his career, right? So I didn't love with the amount of needs the Diamondbacks had that they were going to go out and spend that much money on a position player when they could spread the money around. If they do in fact have that amount of money, they could spread it around a bit more. Now, Bregman's deal ended up costing the Cubs only $20 million a year officially on the books. So that's not a bad deal at all. And again, it's the reason why trading Ketel Marte was actually a factor, because if they could defer the payments and get Bregman to essentially accept something similar that they did with the Cubs, with the Diamondbacks, the difference there is about $5.5 million between what Ketel was getting paid and Bregman would be getting paid, and they would get the haul that they would get for Ketel Marte overall. But again, this move isn't that move. It's not the big name, at least not anymore. This would have been a much more exciting move 5 years ago. However, like I said, I have to stick up for older guys, and I have to say that, again, 34 years old, not that old. All right, let's hope that he can have the renaissance in his career. And I agree with Top G. Marte is better, and it doesn't matter who else you put there on the other end of that. It's just Marte is better, simply put. But I love this move. I really do. And I think it's still sinking in. I was not awake very long ago, so I'm still absorbing all of this information myself. But I think that this does improve the Diamondbacks. And I think overall, if it ends up not being a great move, and if we see Arenado put up similar numbers to what he did in 2025, then at the end of the day, it's not like it's going to impact the Diamondbacks, in an enormous way financially, where it could ruin the franchise essentially, right? Bregman, for instance, if they signed Bregman for $175 million and he ends up coming out and hitting 240 in 2026, then you scream and you run away from this franchise forever. But I appreciate all you guys being here. Of course, like I said earlier, we do have we have our pre-recorded portion of this show with our guy, Jesse Friedman, here coming up. We had so much more to talk about, but when we did record this last night, it was feeling like the Diamondbacks did have a big move imminent. However, we did have to wonder what would happen if they didn't make that big move. I'd love to hear from you guys. Is this a big move for you? Do you think that this actually moves the needle for the Arizona Diamondbacks franchise? I mean, as much as it is a low risk, potential high reward deal, it still doesn't feel like it's enough to compete in this crazy National League West with everything the Dodgers are doing. But I could be wrong about that. And the reason why I could be wrong is this now is definitely a very volatile team. And when I say volatile, I don't just mean in a bad way. Volatile means that this team could win 90 games or it could be a complete disaster. And we have no idea which for sure. But we are going to take a quick break. On the other side of this break, we're going to welcome in our guy, Jesse Friedman from Snakes Territory. And we have more on potentially adding Luis Arraez, which I will admit now is probably not going to happen. But hey, let's take a fun trip down memory lane from last night when we were wondering if Luis Arraez might be a good fit for this team. Don't you go anywhere. You're watching the PHNX Diamondbacks show. Well, if you're looking to get your brand to stand apart from the crowd, look no further than Branded Bills. Branded Bills is a wonderful hat company. We love their hats, and if you are a hat aficionado, they have a wide variety of hats to choose from. Arizona hats that celebrate this great state we live in, as well as hats for ASU and U of A as part of their campus collection, and the Phoenix Suns. But if you are looking to have your brand stand apart from all of the other brands out there, look no further than Branded Bills. They can get you started with a custom headwear order, and they'll get you fitted with the exact custom apparel you need, whether you're looking for snapbacks, truckers, fitted hats, beanies, it doesn't matter. Branded Bills has you covered. They also have t-shirts, bags, and other assorted items. So of course, look to them to, of course, help you stand apart from everyone else. They're a local company from right here in Mesa, Arizona. So head to brandedbills.com and use our code of BBPHNX for 15% off your first order. And whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. This was not an ordinary weekend when it came to football. This was actually an incredible weekend of football. And of course, Bet365 just helps to make all of that betting action so much more fun. So do not miss out on the opportunity. Of course, there are 90 million users worldwide for Bet365, and for good reason. They pioneered live in-game betting, and they offer the widest range of games and markets available for live in-game betting across 78 sports. And they have their early payout offer on nearly all of those sports, including football, where you are a winner if your team goes up by 17 points with an instant payout on straight bets and parlay selections, which will be marked as winners. So right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when you bet $5, win or lose. All you have to do is sign up, use that code of PHNX365 when you do, deposit $10 and place a bet for $5 or more to win or lose, and you will receive $200 in bonus bets. Bonus bets can be used on the spread, totals, players, props, futures, and more. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. It must be 21 or over and physically located in Arizona. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP, text NEXT STEP to 53342, or visit problemgambling.az.gov. The Diamondbacks, of course, do have a lot of positional needs, as we've discussed, and they really haven't done much to address any of those. I mean, James McCann is pretty much the only positional need that they have filled when we knew they needed a backup catcher. We're thrilled to have McCann back, so that's a great thing. But again, a lot of questions about what the Diamondbacks are going to do with the rest of these positions. Like you said, Jesse, of course, there is the idea that they want to go with a platoon. We know right now that they are kind of set to have like Pavin Smith platoon with Tyler Locklear when he returns at first base. We also know that, there's some questions about what the Diamondbacks are going to do, as you said, in the outfield with center field and Alek Thomas, as well as what they're really going to do at third base. Is Blaze Alexander going to be their regular third baseman if nothing changes? Does he start the season in left field with Jordan Lawler over there at third? So there's a lot of things that we still don't know until we get into camp, and more importantly, until we see the Diamondbacks make some more moves to add to this roster. But one name we brought up yesterday was the possibility of adding Luis Arraez to this team, and that's obviously an exciting proposition because Arraez is one of the most consistent contact hitters, not just in Major League Baseball currently, but in Major League Baseball history. He has a career .317 average, 3 batting titles in both leagues, and an extremely low strikeout rate, and obviously great bat-to-ball skills. Now, his numbers haven't looked as great in last season as they have in the past, but it still feels like if you are adding Luis Arraez to this team, you are adding elite contact ability, Jesse, and you are very likely to boost an offense that last year was already pretty good. Some subtractions from that offense definitely changed things, including, Gino Suarez's bat. But it does feel like if you could somehow slot in a guy like Luis Arraez with Ketel Marte, with Corbin Carroll, with Geraldo Perdomo, we're going to see him cross home plate quite a bit in 2026.
I don't hate the idea as much as I maybe thought I would. I think if you asked me like a month or two ago, I would have not even gone down this road one iota. But the more I think about it, it does make some sense. I mean, as of right now, the Diamondbacks plan at DH appears to be Adrian Del Castillo as plan A. At least right now, there isn't really anyone else who clearly is in the thick of that other than Pavin Smith, but you imagine that he's probably going to get most of his reps at first base. So right now, I think their situation against right-handed pitching in particular, I mean, really their whole DH situation feels pretty up in the air. And Luis Arraez would raise the floor of their performance at that position pretty considerably. I think that even though he on paper, is about a one WAR player, that's what he was in 2025.
Correct.
I think there's probably a little more value in his bat than what OPS might tell you. Not a ton of value above his OPS, but maybe a little bit of value just because of how often he's putting the ball in play. Right. I think he still has a shot to hit 300 for the next couple years. He's only 28 years old. Feels like he's a lot older than that, but he's actually pretty young.
It's because of how much he's accomplished in his young career, honestly. And he's done it not quietly, but I mean, nobody thinks of Luis Arraez as a superstar. And that seems to be the case. It felt like going to San Diego was a strong move for him, and then his numbers kind of slipped a little bit. It's easy to kind of get lost in that machine that is the Padres with all of those, big personalities and superstars that they have over there. But like overall, yeah, he's a guy that could, with his contact rate, could bang the ball around Chase Field quite a bit. Doesn't have the traditional strong batting like numbers, like his walks aren't great, or his walk percentage isn't great, his power isn't great. But again, he's like a guy that you feel like you add him in with these guys. It's somebody that gets on base a lot, gets hits a lot, and is able to just constantly find a way to get a hit or make contact. You feel like it's different from the rest of the lineup. That's one thing that you feel like you're getting. You also feel like you're getting a guy that is kind of like, I mean, without the power numbers, a lot like the other guys, right? Like a lot like Perdomo and Corbin and Cattell. You just feel like you put those four guys together and you feel like something good is going to happen. But again, there's a lot of negatives against Arraez. And this is what I was alluding to earlier. The Diamondbacks are not in a position to add a player at this point that just plays one position. Sorry, we can't do that. And when that position and all you play well is designated hitter, that's especially something that the Diamondbacks really can't afford to address for a guy that's going to get, according to reports, somewhere in the neighborhood of $14 million, $12 to $14 million per season. And the Diamondbacks really need, if they're going to go after a power bat or a bat like this, I can't say power bat about Arraez, but a bat like this, it needs to be a guy that can play first base. And quite frankly, his defense is fairly atrocious. I mean, he seems like he's more of a liability over there than somebody that's going to be reliable, especially if the Diamondbacks are counting on him playing first base a lot.
It would be kind of an awesome encapsulation of like how baseball has evolved to have Luis Arraez as your designated hitter every day. Like, 10, 20 years ago, you view a designated hitter as like, all right, they're, big time power guy, might not hit for much of an average.
Just a big guy in general, big beefy boy, Jesse, with big arms and probably a big gut. Somebody who you think's not going to run around the bases very fast or defend well, but you don't need him to because all he does is mash dingers. That's the kind of guy that used to be a DH, not a 312 contact hitter. Not that guy. That's not a DH. That guy needs to play a corner position.
Yeah, and that's what's just so weird about Arraez is that he in so many ways is not your prototypical DH. I mean, he's listed at 5'10", 175 on Baseball Reference. But at the same time, there are aspects of his game that unfortunately kind of are like a DH. Like he doesn't really run well at this stage in his career. And as you were talking about earlier, I mean, his defense has just not been very good. Hence why we're talking about him as a DH. I know he spent quite a bit of time at first base for the Padres this past year, but he didn't grade out very well there. And he hasn't graded out well as a second baseman basically ever. So, you could have him play first base for you occasionally if you needed to. I think he could do that. but it's definitely not going to be an ideal situation. And I think for the D-backs, the biggest obstacle maybe is just the fact that he has won several batting titles in the past. Like his
Yeah,
credentials are much more lofty than the reality of who he is as a player. And so I think you're going to have to
it's a good
pay
point.
just a little bit more than like what he's probably worth it to you.
Great
And for a
point.
D-backs team that doesn't have like a ton of money floating around, at least it doesn't feel that way, it seems unlikely.
Also, with what I said earlier, right? The Diamondbacks kind of have guys like that. They have guys that can get on base. They have guys that are faster than Luis Arraez. They have guys that are better defenders than Luis Arraez, right? So you really feel like if you are going to add a DH to this team, a guy that just is your designated hitter, you want that power because you feel like that's the thing that's kind of missing. It's not to say Cattell doesn't have power or Jerry doesn't have power or Corby doesn't have power, but you feel like, again, those guys are going to get on base a lot. And what you need is that guy that can deliver the big hit or at least, consistently get the balls to fly out to the outfield so that you can bring home runs and such, right? You also have the fact that the Diamondbacks are prioritizing defense, right? That's what they said. They're prioritizing defense. Mike Hazen also said he's prioritizing pitching. So that's another reason why I don't see them spending the remaining amount of money they have, essentially the total amount, on a Luis Arraez, right? But for a team that does want their everyday players to be able to contribute multiple ways, be versatile, and be good defensively, he just doesn't fit this team in that way. But like yourself, this is the Stockholm syndrome I was talking about last week, Jesse. This is where you start talking yourself into a player simply because of what's left on the market. The Diamondbacks would be irresponsible to be honestly in the conversation for a lot of the players that are left. I mean, outside of like a Ranger Suarez or even honestly a Zach Gallen, like it feels like, I mean, again, I don't want them to spend the kind of money that is going to take for most of the top free agents left. So you have to start looking further down the list, which you could argue Luis Arraez absolutely is. But once those bigger teams start missing out on the players that they were trying to get, the Red Sox, for instance, they're now focusing on Bo Bichette. So they're going to change their focus and they're going to go after the next guy. And then if Bo Bichette gets picked off, the Red Sox are going to change their focus and go after someone else. And it could be a Luis Arraez. So again, it's not really a player worth the Diamondbacks kind of getting into that negotiation bidding war with as resources start to dwindle here in the free agency market because he doesn't really fit, this team well enough for them to do so with him.
I'm still just so curious about where his market will land. I mean, my guess, as I was saying earlier, is that he's going to get paid a little bit more than what his raw stats would probably suggest. But I mean, maybe there's a chance that he doesn't. Maybe there's a chance that the market sees him really just based on what the numbers are, and they're kind of expecting him to continue to regress, which he certainly has the past couple years. And that's probably the route for this to happen for the D-backs is like, oh wow, Luis Arraez market has actually dropped a lot lower than we thought. Maybe we actually can go out there and get him. Again, I think he does sort of fit the roster. I mean, they really could use another bat, especially someone who can hit right-handed pitching to slot into your DH role every day. So it makes sense, but given the limited resources they have, it also might not.
Also, working with this coaching staff, right? Like, I don't know. I mean, the Diamondbacks have in the past been good at making people better defenders. I don't know if this particular coaching staff can do that, but, I mean, you just never know. You never know. You could be pleasantly surprised. But I think we have Luis Arraez's stats from the last 3 seasons, Jesse, and this is another, bit of a concern, right? Like you said, when you were talking about his his batting title years, right? You're just seeing kind of a drop off from those seasons. In 2023, he hit 354 with an 861 OPS, 10 home runs, 69 RBI, nice, and a 4.6 baseball reference WAR. But since then, with the Padres, he has, been considerably worse. 2024, still good numbers, 314 average, 739 OPS, 4 homers, 46 RBI, and a 1 baseball reference WAR. Last season, 292, 719 OPS, 8 home runs, 61 RBI, 1.2 BWAR. So definitely not the player he was with the Padres, for sure, and not the player that won 2 batting titles with the Padres, but perhaps the fact that he did have those poor numbers in San Diego allows him to be a bit cheaper. There are some projections that have him going for 2 years, like $18 million range, right? If that's the case, the Diamondbacks can get him for less than $10 million a year. I really don't hate that. And I think, again, when you talk about the needs of this team, it would be so beneficial for them to still spend the money that they had considered, spending on Bregman just a little bit to add to the rest of this roster. I'd still rather them spend it on starting pitching. But again, Luis Arraez feels like a guy who is going to make the offense substantially better and run kind of on that chaos theory once again. Maybe not the power that we've seen out of this team the last few seasons, but more of the base path chaos and getting a lot of hits.
He is a valuable hitter against righties in particular. I mean, looking at his splits from 2025, even as the numbers continue to kind of drop off overall, he hit 304 with a 751 OPS against righties. So if you put him in sort of a platoon situation, at least some of the time, where he was mostly just facing righties, granted, I don't know if Arraez would be willing to sign with a team that wanted to use him that way, but I think he could still provide quite a bit of value there. I mean, if you can slide Arraez at the top of your lineup and push Perdomo, Moreno, Carroll, all of those guys back a spot. Who am I forgetting? I know there's a name that
Marte?
I just did not say. Marte, thank you. That's the other one.
You're not pushing him back too far. You're getting him second no matter what. That's the most you're going to push him back.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe you'd want to just hit Arraez lower in the lineup anyway, but it would add another formidable hitter against righties that the Diamondbacks really, really lack as of right now. And Arraez is also just kind of a fun player. Like he's more fun than the numbers would tell you, right? Like he basically never strikes out. I mean, in 471 plate appearances against righties, he struck out 11 times.
That's
which,
crazy.
Makes my head explode.
That's crazy. That's crazy. Yeah. Hey, and you know what? Not only is he a fun player, but it's just he's the kind of guy that's going to probably find success at Chase Field. I just feel like this is that kind of ballpark where you would see that OPS, that slugging percentage go up because of the bases that he could potentially nab, and his number still 291 is 291 still puts him as like the best hitter on the Diamondbacks, even as we talk about him kind of regressing anyway. So that this is not a bad thing to add a man like this. I just, once again, don't feel like he's versatile enough for him to fill enough needs to spend 10 million or 14 million on. But again, you change that by a few million and we're talking. But we're going to take a quick break. And on the other side of this break, much like when I asked Jesse last week if we're just one injury away from this starting rotation falling into a disaster, we're going to talk about the Diamondbacks possibly being the most volatile roster in Major League Baseball in 2026, at least with the way it's currently constructed. We're going to do that on the other side of this break. Don't you go anywhere. You're watching the PHNX Diamondback Show. Now is a great time for you to get started on your home projects. I know 2026 is here. I've tried to say, don't wait until the beginning of a new year to get started on things, but sometimes that's what we need, and sometimes we need help getting started on those projects. The Window Depot is the place to go. The Window Depot, more than just windows. They got their start with windows back in 2002, but they have themselves a big inventory of job site ready quantities. They also have some of the lowest prices you can find, as well as, of course, no gimmicks, no wait times, just everyday low pricing and ready to go inventory. That's why contractors love the Window Depot. They love their unbeatable prices and their expert service. Plus, of course, no membership is required at the Home Depot, and you don't have to be a contractor. You can go in and save with 7 locations across Arizona, and you can make sure to get started on your project today. They actually have in-house designers free of charge if you need help bringing your vision to life, which is a huge help. Their in-house designers are there to help you plan your space at no extra cost. From cabinets to countertops, they make it simple. The Window Depot, more than a window store. Stop by one of the Window Depot's 7 Arizona locations and see for yourself why They are way more than just a window store. Stop by also Circle K, maybe on your way to the window store. Get yourself something to drink, get yourself something to eat, fill up your car with gas. You can do all of those things at the Circle K, and you could probably do it for cheaper. It is America's thirst stop. And of course, you can get even lower deals or lower prices, more deals by joining their Inner Circle Rewards program right now. Easy to enroll and get started today. Then all you have to do is use your phone number and save on all sorts of Inner Circle rewards. You can get yourself deals on gas. You can get yourself 79-cent Polar Pops. You can get yourself 99-cent Frosters and all sorts of other deals. They also have their meal deal matrix. So again, if you are hungry and you need to stop in for a quick bite, check out everything Circle K has to offer. Don't forget, they got you covered with their snacks and their wonderful food that they have over there. Join the Inner Circle and you'll save yourself some money. You can do so for free by downloading the Circle K app today. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit circlek.com for details. Jesse, when you talk about a volatile roster, when I talk about volatile roster, obviously that means that they could go not just careening off the edge to disaster, but could be surprisingly fun to watch, much like this Phoenix Suns team. I've said it before, and I will say it again. People picked this team to win like 26 games, and I think they just won their 24th game last night, and that is, or the other night, and that's well before the All-Star break. So that Suns team doing some unexpected things, as could this Diamondbacks team. They could win 90 games, or they could fall apart by June. There's so much of this depends on, health. Obviously, we know they've had a lot of health issues. So you feel like if this roster can stay healthy, especially the new addition of Michael Soroka, things could be good. It also depends on young pitching, especially in the bullpen, right? Not only just in the bullpen, but it depends on depth beyond just the major league roster. The way this team is constructed right now, they only have 5 starting pitchers. And as Corbin Burns warned us, we never get through a season with just 5 starting pitchers. So this isn't just about bad or good one way or another, but just, again, unpredictable. This team feels very unpredictable as far as what we could expect out of 2026. And again, a lot of that is because when the Diamondbacks parted ways with so many quality players on their roster, like Geno Suarez, Josh Naylor, and Merrill Kelly at the trade deadline, you just expected this team to be bad, if not horrible. I mean, we expected them to also trade away Zach Gallen, and we expected just to be struggling through the final few months of the season. Instead, they fought harder than they did all season long and made things competitive for, that wild card spot. I know I will say it time and time again that was far more about the Mets collapsing than it was about teams like the Diamondbacks and other teams really having this huge comeback. However, again, when you see the way this team played in the second half, and you think that this is largely the same team that did that, it's kind of hard to be, I guess, immediately negative about their chances for 2026.
It's a decent spot compared to where it's been recently. I think their starting pitching depth is in a better spot than it's probably been in a long time going into a season, which granted, like, do we really know much about Cole Drake or Christian Mena or Mitch Bratt or, whether these guys are going to be able to really give you quality major league innings? We don't, but there's at least more names that are promising than the team has had in a while. At the same time, like, we've all seen it so many times watching baseball, like, sometimes the team you think is going to win 72 games wins 90. And sometimes you think the team that's going to win 90 wins 65. Or, I mean, it still blows my mind. The 2021 Diamondbacks won 51 games or 52 games. I don't want to shortchange them. 52 games in a season where they were going for it. I mean, that was not a year where they were tanking. And yet that's just what happened because the depth was in that poor of a spot. So I don't expect a mega scale collapse. I don't really view that as being all that possible, although of course you can never rule anything out entirely in this game. But there's some volatility for sure. I mean, is Eduardo Rodriguez going to have an ERA of 5 or an ERA of 3.75? Like, I think those are both probably on the table. Brandon Pfaadt, there's a wide range of outcomes there as well. Michael Soroka, I think there's a fairly wide range of outcomes there. Certainly hope he can stay healthy. Offensively, I think they have four of the best hitters in the sport. Like, they have four of the best position players in the sport. And I think that acts as a significant floor raiser. So to your point, though, there's a lot of volatility here for sure. There's no getting around that.
It feels like the biggest problem is what we just saw in 2025. Now, I know, fingers crossed, that was an abnormally bad year for injuries, right? But I guess when I take a look at this roster, the one problem I have is, like, what happens if we have a catastrophic amount of injuries again? Now, that's something, of course, you could ask about any team, and the results aren't going to be great. But it just does feel like the Diamondbacks are teetering on the point of not even being able to field a team should they experience what they experienced last year, right? I mean, it really does feel like that is one of the reasons why it feels like this season could go in either direction, health. But it also, Michael Soroka, a lot of question marks about what he can do, a lot of question marks about the bullpen, right? Like, we like a lot of the guys in the bullpen, but it's hard to sit here and justify, or at least argue on behalf of the bullpen being good, when you're like, this guy had a 4.7 ERA and this guy had a 5.3 ERA, but I think they're all going to be better next year. Like, there's a lot of, I feel like they're going to be better, but you have to, right? I mean, it does feel like, it feels like Brandon Pfaadt's going to be better. It feels like Erod's going to be better. I don't know why. I don't know what proof I have or what thing is making me feel like that, other than you feel like these guys, especially for stretches, were all better than their numbers said, especially Erod. I will defend Erod quite a bit, because I felt like for a 5-game, 6-game stretch, Erod was suddenly one of the best pitchers in Major League Baseball, going up against some of the toughest lineups in baseball and putting up some amazing performances. But that, once again, slipped right off. So if that would have continued until the end of the season, I would be far more confident that I think Erod's going to come back and have a better 2026. But I do think his numbers are going to be better than the past 2 seasons. I do think Brandon Pfaadt's going to be back. But again, this volatility that I described, Jesse, is more of the, what if they're not? What if they're worse than they were? And that's also a possibility. So that's the reason why it feels like, I mean, again, if this team, if those pitchers, for instance, are as bad as they were that last year, that could be enough to sink this team alone, or if they experience the injuries they have or whatever, it really comes down to the Dodgers and those other teams that have a lot of money. They can so easily overcome major injuries to practically anyone on their roster, but the Diamondbacks might not be able to overcome 2 starting pitcher injuries, no matter who those guys are. And it could be their 4 and 5 starters as far as they're concerned. And that might be enough to be like, yep, we forfeit the rest of our games for 2026. Not literally, but you get where I'm going.
I think their season is disproportionately dependent on Geraldo Perdomo, Corbin Carroll, Ketel Marte, and Gabriel Moreno.
Yeah.
Like, just from a mathematical standpoint, you look at the projections for the Diamondbacks, and about 70% of their position player value comes from those 4 players. So if you lose one of those players for a significant portion of the season, or one of those players just sort of out of nowhere, it has a down year, that really could be problematic. I think on the position player side, there are not quite as many promising names ready to step in if guys get hurt. On the pitching side, you can at least have some hope, some guys who haven't made their debut yet that are well-regarded prospects. You can hope that those guys can step in and do a decent job for you. But the position player side, I mean, we talked about Ryan Walshman earlier. Like, he's an exciting name, but Jordan Lawler, like, can he take another step? That's another high volatility player. Like, the distance between the best outcome and the worst outcome seems very, very large. So those 4 position players, like, they have just an outsized impact on this team, and the Dbacks will probably go as they go.
Well, we as a website go only as our diehards go, Jesse. So we just want to thank those of you that are already diehards. We've had so many new diehards sign up, and we can't thank you guys enough. If you are not part of our diehard family, sign up today, get some exclusive content, join the PHNX Discord Lounge, which is the best place to be an Arizona sports fan. You get yourself a free t-shirt, you get yourself 20% off merch, 20% off events, and a whole lot of fun being part of this family. Plus, we have some fun surprises we're bringing our diehards in 2026, and I look forward to all of that. So head on over to gophnx.com and prove your fanhood by becoming a PHNX diehard today. Before we get out of here, Jesse, I just wanted to get your entirely too early spring training overreaction predictions. I know that's a lot. So I'm gonna break this down. But of course, we are now less than a month away from spring training, I guess, or at least camp being going on. Of course, pitchers and catchers reporting on February 11th. So I wanted to see what you predict for the future based on absolutely nothing. So Jesse, I want to start off by asking you, when spring training finally comes around, which minor leaguer do you predict will turn heads in camp?
Minor leaguer. I think Gilbert Diaz comes to mind. I know that's a name that
Oh,
we've already seen
yeah.
in the big leagues, but it really seems like Diaz figured something out down the stretch. 2025 was just a brutal year for him where he really couldn't throw strikes in AAA. The Diamondbacks demoted him down to AA to try to help him out. But toward the end of the season, he started pitching pretty well, and he had more success in the Venezuelan Winter League over the offseason. So I think Diaz could come in and could have a good spring training and could win a bullpen spot. Like if he appears to be one of the 8 best options, I think the Diamondbacks would totally be willing to put him in that role. We expect them to add to the bullpen in the next few weeks, but there's probably still going to be 1 or 2 spots that are just kind of open for competition. So Diaz is a name that stands out to me for sure.
I also had a pitcher myself. I was thinking Cole Drake would be a guy potentially, but I do know Cole
Sure.
Drake's still kind of like he's back, but again, there was an injury that kind of held him back a little bit. I also think Tommy Troy, who has just I hear nothing but glowing things about every time I read about him. I think that like scouts and people in the organization seem to love him, and I think he is a guy who might understand the assignment here of coming up and not necessarily letting himself be blocked by all of this stuff going on, right? Like there's a lot of opportunity for minor league players here to impress, and I don't think anybody is 100% set in their position. But again, I think that it's hard for guys like Troy to kind of look at the Diamondbacks roster right now and see where they're going to fit in at least anytime soon. But screw all of that. Just come up and impress. I mean, right now, with the way things are, we'll convert you to an outfielder or whatever. We'll figure a way out. What if you can impress in spring training? I think that again, especially for someone like him, he could be seeing major league roster time very soon. I do want to ask you which veteran will show up in the best shape of his life and why that person is James McCann.
Yeah, James McCann's name definitely came to mind there. I mean, just thinking about the Diamondbacks roster, like at least on the position player side, I mean, they don't have all that many veteran type players. I guess
Right.
Ketel Marte would fit in that category. I mean, I guess Lourdes Gurriel Jr.
Yeah.
Maybe in spring
Yeah.
training we get to see him up close and personal, and it looks like he's just ready to go. 6 months ahead of schedule, or what? I guess it wouldn't be quite that far, but pretty close to 6 months ahead of
Yeah.
schedule if you
It's
look good
crazy.
in spring training. So he's a name that comes to mind. Uh, on the pitching
Merrill Kelly
side.
is not showing up to camp in the best shape of his life. We know that. That is no offense to Merrill, but Merrill isn't even showing up with pants that properly fit him because he doesn't give a damn, and he will wear whatever baggy size pants he wants, and he will go out there and pitch in whatever shape he wants to. And you know what? He'll be great when he does, but I don't see Merrill Kelly being that guy. It has to be James McCann. We've talked enough about his giant muscles and his arm tassels and everything else he brings to this team, but you're probably not wrong. I think Lourdes Gurriel absolutely could be the most impressive, veteran showing up ready to go, because if he is, then, I mean, I don't know. I know it was just speculation, but based on the time frame, I had said it on this show, we might not have ever seen Lourdes in a Diamondbacks uniform ever again. That was definitely a possibility with the time frame that was set for his particular injury. So it would be great to see him show up in camp and be ready to go. Last, before we get out of here, Jesse, which pitcher from the starting rotation or the bullpen is going to throw 97 miles per hour and instantly turn into a Cy Young candidate?
This is bold on my end, but I'm gonna throw Michael Soroka's name out
Yes,
there.
that's mine too. Let's
That's
go,
yours
Jesse.
too. I think Michael Soroka is just clearly dedicated to his craft and really, really wants to prove himself. I mean, he's just had year after year marred by injuries. We heard in his press conference how much he's been working on adding different pitches and building on his arsenal. So 97 miles per hour, I guess, wouldn't be that out of the ordinary for him. He averaged just under 94 in 2025, but it'd be on the upper end. If he's throwing 97 in spring training, like that would definitely turn heads. So that's the first name that comes to mind for me.
I think the thing about him is that he was so good at one point in his career before all of those injuries held him back, that the minute you see him do something like that, you're like, oh, we're back. Like, I don't know if anybody else is really going to make you feel that way, because we know the rest of the starting pitchers in the rotation so well. We've seen them. So again, it would be neat to see some of them hitting those numbers, but you also don't feel like, like we're going to see something completely different out of what we've seen in the past. Michael Soroka is a guy that if you see glimpses of what he was at one time with the Atlanta Braves, you're going to be like, this may have been the greatest signing in the history of baseball. So who knows? Who knows? But again, that's what adds to this volatility that I'm talking about. This team, I have no idea what this team is going to be, and I've never been so unsure about what they could be. I would not be surprised once again to see them win 90 games, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them be awful in 2026. Let's hope for the other thing. Let's hope for the 90 wins for sure. Well, thanks to Jesse, of course, as always, for being a part of this show. Of course, you can follow Jesse at Jesse and Friedman. Make sure to check out Snake's Territory with our guy, Jack Summers. They will be covering this Nolan Arenado trade, I'm sure, very, very soon. But just coming back to the Arenado trade, we got CoolBro297 had a super chat, and he says, Nolan Arenado feels like eating an ice cream cone to satisfy a sweet tooth, but it will get the job done, but not long term if you are looking for nutrition, for a nutrition ally. CoolBro is always making food metaphors here when it comes to the Diamondbacks acquiring people. Yes, that is right, but it's also maybe a values cone, like the 99-cent cone you get at McDonald's. It's not a very expensive cone. So yeah, it's not going to be very fulfilling. It's probably not going to, again, like Nolan Arenado, it looks great on the poster and it's very attractive looking overall, but of course, perhaps not that much nutritional value. I still think that Arenado is going to be of value to the Diamondbacks over there at third base, and I still very much love the potential of him playing first base for this team. I think Blaze and Jordan are very capable of handling the third base duties. I do not feel the same level of confidence about who the Diamondbacks currently have over there at first base. But we got Jacob Franklin, Big Jacob in the chat, is asking, predict the next big move. Well, since Damon is not here, I will do it on his behalf, and that is that the Diamondbacks sign Sir Anthony Dominguez to bolster their bullpen and perhaps have him be that bridge closer, guy that closes the bridge between now and the time where AJ Puck and Justin Martinez return. But Crystal is asking us to be positive, and I am with Crystal. I'm very positive about this. Much like your mama definitely understands baseball, says Arenado for $5 million a year is a steal. I feel the same way. Again, it's not the Nolan Arenado of the past, and I think many of us understand that at this point. However, there could have been and I don't know, maybe this says something about his character. I'm just speculating here, but maybe there was an effort issue with him in 2025, because again, going back to his 2024 numbers, if he is able to put up something similar to a slash line of 272, 325, 394 for 719 OPS with close to 20 home runs and close to 100 RBI, I mean, this is a deal, right? Like, this is a huge deal for the Diamondbacks. If he doesn't, then it's still just a guy that they end up paying $5 million for in 26 and $6 million for in 27 that can still help them considerably defensively in the infield. This is what the Diamondbacks want to get back to in 2026. They want to get back to their calling card of being a solid defensive team, and I believe that Nolan Arenado definitely helps them with that. But appreciate you guys so much for stopping by. Apologies for the Frankenstein of a show here, but like I said, big thanks to Jesse Friedman again for being here with us. And we have to pre-record Jesse sometimes, but a pre-recorded Jesse is better than no Jesse at all. So make sure to follow him at Jesse N. Friedman. Make sure to check out Snakes Territory at Snakes Territory and wherever you get your podcast, wherever you get this podcast. But of course, I am your mayor. I am at Cap_Caveman with a K. Damon is not here. We got Noah on the 1s and 2s today doing an awesome job of filling in. He does not want you to follow him on social media, so he's asked me to not tell you at all. In fact, if you do follow Noah on Instagram or Twitter, unfollow him right now as we speak. But our show is at PHNX_Dbacks. And of course, all roads, as always, do lead to at PHNX_sports on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Thank you guys so much for everything. And yes, let's keep things very positive with this Diamondbacks team. At the end of the day, this was a fantastic move, and a move that helps not only with depth, but to bring veteran experience to a team that, quite frankly, doesn't have very much of that right now. So excited to see what Nolan Arenado can do wearing a Diamondbacks uniform. And again, excited to see what this team can be. It's going to be very volatile. We know that much. So again, thank you guys for your time. We'll be back tomorrow at 12 p.m. with Dre Jameson joining us in studio. So make sure to join us for that. He just got himself a brand new Corvette. So fingers crossed he's going to take me for a ride around downtown in it when he gets here. But that's probably not looking very likely. So regardless, make sure to join us tomorrow for Dre Jameson here in studio. And of course, we thank you guys for your time. Make sure you are careful of who you share it with. Your time is a commodity. Only share it with those who deserve it. But appreciate you guys giving us some of your time today. We'll see you tomorrow. Until then, have yourselves a wonderful evening. Behave yourselves, Killer Rex. And remember, kids, baseball is fun, but it's so much more fun when you look at Nolan Arenado's numbers from 24 and not 25.
We all silly like the mayor.